Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Spooky Chicks and Horror Flicks. We are your hosts, Emma
and Alison, or Allie. I know,
like that
a little
one.
spicy today.
I like it. Or Mike Myers, or Captain Kirk from Star Trek,
or Annie, or Linda, because that's probably who I am in this film. We'll get more into that, and I'll explain why.
We will. And for those of you that don't know us, we are two best friends that love to talk about our favorite horror films and tear them apart over a glass of wine. Okay, so Allie, what are we drinking today?
You know what? We're throwing a wild card in for myself because, if you listen, you probably know I usually drink a black cherry White Claw. But
if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. And I know because I love it. But today we're drinking a Dracula Red Blend by 19 Crimes in honor of our favorite day and our favorite Batman. Get it?
Our favorite Batman.
Do you get it though?
Yeah, because it turns into a bat.
But also Christian Bale is probably my favorite. I know George Clooney is probably my favorite Batman.
Ooh, that is a conversation for another
That's
time.
a conversation for you.
Like, what about Adam West? Like, what
no.
about
I'd probably say
Michael
George
Keaton?
Oh, shit.
Okay, sorry.
Anyways,
I digress.
We are drinking a red blend today, and it's kind of like we're drinking blood because it's Halloween.
It's bloody, and we're feeling like singing because this is also a very special episode because we are going to be reviewing the Halloween. And this episode, you guys don't know yet, but this is a surprise for everyone because normally we put out an episode every other week on Thursdays, and we've got a bonus episode for you. So you'll have an episode that comes out the Thursday before Halloween, and then this one will be coming out on Halloween night, baby.
So basically, if you're listening on Halloween, like, you're welcome.
You're freaking welcome.
And also thank you.
But also like massive amounts of gratitude to you. So thank you for listening to us. But cheers, Allie, to not only actual Halloween, but Halloween.
Oh,
the film.
A double entendre.
A double entendre.
Cheers to drinking blood.
Yes. All right. So then getting into our rose and thorns since our last episode. Allie, would you like to start us off?
I believe I start today. Yes, absolutely. I'll start with my rose because it also leads into my thorn. My bloody rose. My rose that Gomez gives to Morticia.
Oh, you were thinking the Addams Family. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. My Addams Family rose is my husband Kevin and I went to New York for our 2nd anniversary.
Woo!
And it was
give my regards to Broadway. Remember me from Herald Square.
That just reminds me of Bring It On, but like
it does
for sure. You guys, sorry, we're on one today. It's been a long couple days. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So we went to New York. That was Kevin's first time, so that was exciting. It was my like 3rd time, but I hadn't been since I was of legal drinking age. So like, what up?
What up?
And I'd never been in the quote unquote fall. It hadn't like turned fall-y yet, but it was getting there. And there were pumpkins everywhere.
I'm so jealous because when I went in September, it was like not fallish at all.
Yeah, we had major fall vibes. I'm going to go probably next year because like it was that fall-y. And I'm really jealous that we don't get that much support of Halloween in San Diego.
God. And then I know we mentioned this before, but Allison and I went to Salem last year, and like nothing is going to top that, except we did say that we would like to go to New Orleans soon.
Yes.
So that might be our next like spooky trip.
100%. Yeah. I'm going to cut my wrist and black my eyes. And then you're going to do it too. And we're going to make a blood pact. Because we're going to do
Blood Brothers?
Yeah, Blood Brothers. But anyways, we went to New York. So many good bagels, so much good pizza. It was basically
Did you see any rats? Sorry to interrupt, but that's really,
Actually,
it's really important to me.
I didn't.
I saw one when I was there, and I remember telling my friend Shannon, my first New York City rat. I was like really excited.
Now I'm low-key disappointed I didn't see a rat.
And shout out to my friend Leanna, who actually my coworker. She's amazing. Her and her boyfriend were a New York City rat and trash for Halloween.
That is cute.
This year.
Well, I did see a lot of trash because I was like there on trash day or something, and I didn't know people.
Oh, you were?
People just literally yeet their trash into the streets.
Oh, dude,
and I'm like,
it gets yeeted.
I loved the vibe. I felt free. In New York, you can be a new woman.
You can.
To quote Hamilton.
Absolutely.
Sort of. So Thorn was my husband, Kevin, who I went to New York with, got sick on the second day of our tripped to New York. So he was out of commission for, sadly, a majority. And I felt really bad because that was his first time there. So that's why I'm saying we got to go back.
Yep.
So it's just an excuse to go back.
Exactly.
And then I feel really bad when Kevin is sick, especially when we're traveling, which happens kind of a lot.
Yeah, he just like some people, when they just get sick because they're like, it's just like new environments and traveling and stuff. Kevin's just unfortunately one of those people. Yeah. So it's sad. Yeah.
But Emma,
I can understand.
Talk to me about your rose and thorn.
I have like a pretty gnarly thorn, but I have a couple of roses that have made it a little bit better. So unfortunately, I did lose a family member in the last week. And that has just been really hard on my family. Shout out to all my family in Chicago. I love all of you guys and thinking of you. I wish I was there to hug you all, but we're all coming together and it sucks that sometimes these things like make your family stronger. But anyways, it's all good. But my thorns, I was able to invite a lot of my closest girlfriends over to my place on Friday night. And we had a very spooky wine night. And I made, I don't know why I said wine because we actually started with margaritas.
They were super cute though.
Yeah. And I made like really spooky drinks. And Allie helped me decorate my apartment. It's already obviously decorated for Halloween, but we just took it to like the next level with all the decor. And yeah, those were kind of areas that really helped to round out kind of a really shitty thing that was going on in my life. So before we dive into trivia today, we do want to give a spoiler alert. We do these at the top of each episode. So if you have not seen the 1978 Halloween, we urge you to go watch it right now. So stop the podcast and go watch so that you can follow along with our discussion. Or if you would like to proceed, please proceed with caution.
So speaking of trivia, what we like to do is the producer gives us trivia questions at the beginning of the episode, and we like to see if we know what the answers are, and we will revisit them at the end. So we encourage you to do the same. And now Emma and I are going to start keeping score, and maybe we'll do some dares about
I'm nervous.
who wins. But if you want to answer them at the top, and then we're going to revisit and answer these trivia
questions. Tuck your answers away.
Yeah, and then we're going to go back to them at the end. And we don't know what these questions are.
We have not been prepped ahead of time.
But with that being said, let's go into question 1.
Ooh, okay.
Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, Janet Leigh, played what title character in Hitchcock's Psycho?
Okay, so question number 2. What was the original title for the film's script before it was changed to Halloween? I know this one too.
I do too.
Well, did you know the first one?
Oh, yeah. We might have to break out a tiebreaker here. Okay. The third and final question is name one of the 2 movies Tommy and Lindsay watched throughout the night. Bonus point if you can name both. Shit.
I know at least one of them.
I don't. I think you might win this one.
Yes. This is thanks to my Faja. I don't know why I'm feeling a little bit silly and I just kind of want to read the synopsis in an accent.
Do it.
So,
well, okay. Which accent?
You know.
Go.
Okay, so 15 years after 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night, 1963, Michael Myers escapes from a mental hospital and returns to the small town of Haddonfield, Illinois, to kill again.
That was beautiful, Emma.
Thank you, Ali. The producer literally hates us.
And if you're listening from Australia, first
we love
of all,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being the inspiration to my whole life.
Please, don't hate us if our accents are so bad. But
well, we've established that I'm a bit of a Kiwi. I'm like a mix. I'm like a little bit from Australia, a little bit from New Zealand.
I'm pretty sure they wouldn't like that.
I don't think so. Okay, let's drop it.
Don't come for us, please.
Okay, so then as we move on, do we want to dive into
some basic ass bitch info about Halloween?
Basic ass bitch info. Babby.
Wait, baby? Wait.
There's no Y, but it's Babby. I like Babby. Babby sounds like
shrimp on the Babby? Oh, you guys.
Shrimp on the Babby. Yes. This is a new segment. I'm so excited.
we're tired and drinking, so
that's when we put out the best content.
Then we put out, or they're going to be like, you guys are so dumb.
This is where the episode listeners drop off.
Please don't. We love you.
Yeah, actually.
It's Halloween. Give us a break and some candy.
Give us a break.
Okay, so shrimp on the Bobby info. So this film, Halloween, was released October 27th, 1978, which is like perfect because I feel like a lot of literally Halloween films release too early, not in time for Halloween, and like too late after Halloween. I'm like, all right, you guys, you knew what you're doing. Good for you.
Yeah, like what film was it that we just reviewed and they released it like a few days before Christmas?
It was it was like on your birthday or something.
And I understood the reasoning behind it was like because they just wanted to have a horror flick as an option for Christmas, which I do appreciate. But yeah, I do agree with you. I feel like it's like we just don't get enough during the month of October.
Totally. Like, I mean, it's different nowadays with movies because we're post-COVID and whatever, so I'm not actually sure what's in theaters at all. For 1978, mwah, chef's kiss.
Wish I was there.
Same. For many reasons. Fashion being one of them.
Yep. And we're going to get into that a little bit.
So this movie's rated R, and I guess that makes sense for the 70s. And in my notes, I have it says there's no nudity and no like real foul language. So I was confused, but I was like, oh, it's the 70s, whatever. And then the producer told us
there were some boobies.
We watched the edited for TV version.
Yeah, we accidentally watched
So we missed the 70s boobies and the cussing. So I guess it makes sense that it was rated R. I know, right? It hits different.
It does.
And our director / writer / composer / everything is John Carpenter, a very young John Carpenter. With his partner Deborah Hill also wrote it. She didn't direct it, but she helped write it. And I think it's so funny that he was the composer because he came up with that dun 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 dun, that iconic Halloween
soundtrack used to creep me out to no end when I was little.
Even today, it's like on any Halloween.
It's so iconic.
Yeah, any Halloween like party playlist. It's like, dun, 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 dun,
I feel like
dun,
that and then like the Jason, like Friday the 13th, the like, you know, that like whole thing. Those are like just both so memorable, so iconic. And just real quick, I want to make sure that we don't glaze over John Carpenter because he is one of my favorite filmmakers. And
really?
Yes, he has made many a film that I really loved.
What, The Fog?
Actually, not The Fog at all. The Thing.
Sure.
They Live. Have you ever seen They Live?
Yes.
Love They Live. Escape from New York.
Okay, that yes.
Big Trouble Little China.
Yes.
The Prince of Darkness.
I agree with two of what you just said.
I'm just saying, as a horror filmmaker, I'm in.
I thought you were going to say, as a horror filmmaker, I appreciate. I was like, oh my gosh.
As myself am a horror filmmaker.
So yeah, he's done, as well as what she said, a bunch of the additional Halloween renditions. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But yeah, give me some Kurt Russell in Escape and Big Trouble. And I'm like, yes.
So good. And just, I like grew up watching The Thing with my dad because that was one of his favorite films. Like, it's burned into my brain the amount of times we watched it.
That one, like, I have PTSD from, so I haven't watched it again.
Oh yeah, like the little spider guy with the head.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, he's an iconic horror filmmaker in this industry, obviously, and I was like, oh my god, he's a fucking composer too. He composes
so
music.
Cool.
I learned that he was like a fucking heartthrob rock band musician before he was in the film industry.
Well, no wonder my dad likes him. He probably listened to his music before.
Maybe they were friends.
Interesting. I should ask him.
But yeah, so we have this iconic guy, John, still alive. So
oh my god, and my dad's name's John.
Yeah,
they're like destined to be best friends. I think. Let's
make this happen.
I think we should. John Carpenter,
listen
if you're out there.
Yeah,
John, my fascia.
Also listen.
Y'all need to be best friends.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
But it's kind of cool about the crew on this movie. They were all, it's not, incestuous is not the right word, but they all like knew, like just came together kind of like a little 70s rock band, but like for a movie crew. And we're like, hey, let's all just like do multiple jobs and like make this thing work on a very tight budget. So, and just like be scrappy and cute and 70s-ish. And I'm like, oh,
the dream.
To live during that time.
Literally.
And the filming location.
Yes.
So this film is mostly filmed. That's so many films in one film. So it's shot. Thank you. I was like, where's my synonym?
Let me find another word.
Yeah.
Let me find another word.
Honestly, I just need a thesaurus like next to me while we're doing this. But it's mostly shot in Pasadena and Sierra Madre, which is just east of LA. It's set, though, in Haddonfield, Illinois, which is a fictional town, but you can tell throughout the movie it totally looks like Pasadena, just an LA suburb. And if you know that fact, it's hard to not realize that. But if you didn't know that, you'd be like, yeah, for sure, Illinois. But I'll bring up some like little pokes into that.
I have kind of a quick one, which is that this was actually filmed in springtime in Pasadena too. So like one thing throughout the film, I guess the crew had a really hard time finding pumpkins because it was springtime, but not only springtime, but also in like the West Coast. And I don't know, it just wasn't the time, wasn't the place for pumpkins. And so I think they ended up only finding like 2 or 3 actual pumpkins that were used throughout the film. But they did find one that was kind of greenish and they ended up just spray painting it orange.
A South American gourd.
There you go.
Yes. So they only got 3 real pumpkins because it's not gourd season.
Nope, not gourd.
It's also not fall foliage season in Pasadena in spring.
Very true.
So everything's green.
Yep.
And you can see palm trees, which I've only been to Chicago and I'm pretty sure they don't have palm trees, but I don't think the suburbs of Illinois have. Correct me if I'm wrong, you guys.
Have some palms, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's set in this fictional town in Illinois. And I was like, why did they make this fictional town? I'm not sure why movies do this. I guess it's just kind of fun. But I learned that one of the producers was from Haddonfield, New Jersey.
Oh.
So just kind of throwing some little odes into that.
Oh, so they were just like, let's do the same town, but different state.
Yeah, way to confuse everyone, right? Yeah. And these houses that we see throughout the film, you can still go visit in Pasadena and Sierra Madre. And kind of cool, or not, I guess how you look at it, is the Michael Myers house was actually like an abandoned building before they started filming.
Yeah.
But then after they filmed it, like turned it into a museum for Halloween.
Yeah. Basically, the house was like already kind of really shitty and condemned looking. And then, they ended up turning it into like a museum, which is so cool.
You can go today.
Like that house had no clue that it was going to get selected for a movie.
And now it lives forever.
I know.
In our hearts.
Very, very famously in our hearts.
If only my condemned body could do the same.
Hey, you never know. We might be there one day.
Let's see. Anyways, moving on. Let's talk about Zuli Meter.
Zuli Meter, for those of you that don't know, our friend Zuli does not like films that deal with a lot of like demon possession, evil spirits, like that kind of thing. So when we say the Zuli meter is very high, that means like if you are anything like Zuli, you should not watch this film. But I believe that this film's pretty low on the Zuli meter because we don't deal with any sort of evil spirits or any conjuring of any sorts or
Zuli can handle this and you can too.
That should be just the tagline for the episode.
Or like, is that my campaign for like my campaign?
Zuli can handle it, so can you.
I think I just became a politician. I'm not sure.
I think you did. So Zuli meter, very low. So you can feel good about watching this if that's demon-y stuff is not your forte.
And then one other thing in our like basic Shrimp on the Bobby info is where can you watch this? Because we hope you've watched this, but if you haven't, you can still pause and go watch it, or you have watched it, or you don't give a fuck to watch it and you just want to listen to us, which love that too.
Love that too.
It's on AMC Plus, but we watched it on Sling today, which I don't even know what that is.
So the producer has Sling, which is essentially kind of like, from my understanding, like its own cable network, sort of, but it's not cable. It's just like, it's its own network that has multiple channels, multiple things that you can watch. And it somehow connected us to AMC Plus because he has that through Sling TV.
Also, you can watch it on Shudder, which if you are like any of us, you probably subscribe to it.
If you're a Halloweeny.
Yeah, Halloweeny like us. You probably subscribe to it from like September through October and get your fix in.
Yep.
Or you can rent it on like YouTube TV or Prime or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that one thing to call out that we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier is that we accidentally watched the edited for TV version. So if you are going to watch it, we really do suggest that you watch the full uncut version, which I believe you can find on Shudder.
Unless you don't want cussing or boobies. We're going to say, but who doesn't?
Who doesn't want that?
Agreed.
Okay, so then diving into some of our ratings for this film. So I know we say this all the time, but this film does have a pretty high rating on IMDb. And the rating is a 7.7 out of 10, which may be the highest rating that we've had so far in the films that we've watched. Like that is almost an 8 out of 10, which I have some thoughts about.
Should I go into Rotten Tomatoes before you reveal your thoughts?
Okay.
So on Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter says 96%, which
that is wild.
I know that that's the highest we've ever talked about.
Definitely.
And I guess I'll wait to give you my feedback too. 96 on tomato meter, and audience score was 89. You go with your feedback on that.
Okay. You guys are going to be surprised at this one because every film we've reviewed so far, I'm like, you know
it's
what?
our favorite.
I like this film. This film is not my favorite. I'm going to pause and let everyone take that in really quick because I know that that's a little bit of a surprise. But it's not that I think the film is necessarily bad. I just feel like in comparison to a lot of the other horror films that are just out there in general, and I've seen a hell of a lot, I just don't get the hype. I understand that there is a cult following for this film. This film is very synonymous for Halloween costumes, Halloween in general. There's obviously not been a lot of other Halloween films specifically that can compare to this film in terms of just like popularity and how it's so universally known. But I just think that down to its core, it's very basic. The killings kind of bored me. The character itself kind of bored me. The lack of character arc kind of bored me a little bit. It was a little bit painful to get through this one, but thank God it's only an hour and 26 minutes long.
Honestly, I wish more movies were shorter.
I agree.
But so my input on those ratings is similar. I also would not give this film these scores at all. But I understand that this was an iconic movie to set a standard, I guess, if you will, for horror films to come.
One, I think it set up the trilogy that is Halloween. People also were in it for the trilogy. If this film was standalone and there were no other films made after it.
Bro, it's not a trilogy. It's like.
Did I say trilogy?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I meant like franchise.
Yeah, franchise.
Sorry. I meant franchise. But like if this film was just standalone, I really don't think it would get as great of ratings.
Well, and I'll get more into this later, but I think this set up a lot of rules and tropes and stuff for movies to come. But like Emma, I was like, holy shit, this is dragging. It's not like it's our first time watching this, but it's our first time analyzing it like we do.
Yep.
And I was like, I would definitely not give it this high of scores.
In terms of our top billed cast, we have a very well-known lady and then a couple of other people that have done some stuff, but definitely, sorry, is that a really bad way to put it together?
Like, no, that's how I would say it, but.
Right? I mean, yeah. So, number one, our gal, main character, Laurie, is played by none other than Jamie Lee Curtis. And Jamie Lee Curtis, this is her like debut film, which is so cool. She had done, I think, like a show or some kind of a series before this, but this was like her feature film.
Yeah, it was called like, I wanted to say Operation Dumbo Drop, but I'm pretty sure that's a movie about an elephant. It's called Operation Petticoat.
Oh, okay.
In the 70s.
Cute. And she is known, if you don't know Jamie Lee Curtis, some of the best things that I would say she's known for is a lot of films within the Halloween franchise. She's also most recently known for Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I actually haven't seen yet.
It's good.
Is it good?
It's really good.
And she won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, which well deserved. She is amazing. I also love her, love her in a film from 1994 called True Lies, where she plays opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger as his wife.
If y'all haven't seen that one scene where she's
oh God, she's so freaking hot.
She's so freaking hot.
So hot.
Also, okay, you guys, if you haven't watched True Lies, what are you doing? If you're listening to this podcast, I really hope you're old enough to have watched True Lies.
I agree.
And also that you'll know the scene when you see it. And if you have already seen it, you'll know.
Yep.
And then there's also this movie called Perfect with John Travolta from like the 80s or early 90s. And it's like she's a jazzercise instructor.
Yes.
And he goes to her class. So hot. I'm just like too. Jamie Lee. Like that bod.
Yep. And then we also freaking love her in Freaky Friday, opposite of Lindsay Lohan.
Also, I will lead into this. So she is dubbed our original Scream Queen by Jamie Kennedy in Scream, which we talked about in that one podcast a couple ones before. I can't remember which one.
Where we reviewed Scream.
So Randy, Jamie Kennedy, calls her our original Scream Queen.
Yep.
And then
She's in the show, Scream Queens,
which I was watching today. It's still one of my favorites.
With Emma Roberts, we love that show.
Yeah,
we love it.
It's on Hulu if you haven't watched it.
I need to rewatch. Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch it tonight.
Hulu.
I'm gonna start.
Huluween girl.
Love it.
Go watch that.
She's also just a freaking hoot. Like, if you follow her on Instagram, she is everyone's biggest cheerleader. She always posts about different world issues that are going on and brings like awareness to them. She is just like a champion of the people. And then another really cool fact about Jamie Lee Curtis, and this does not give away our trivia answer, but John Carpenter considered hiring Jamie Lee Curtis for this film as it being like an ultimate tribute to Mr. Sir Alfred Hitchcock, who had given her mother, Janet Leigh, a legendary role and status in the film, the 1960 film Psycho.
So her father was also in the film industry, Tony Curtis. So she's technically, I know this is like I don't know if this is like a bad term, but she's technically a Nepo baby. But our girl, has worked her ass off.
She's a true icon and queen.
She's iconic. Lisa, if you're listening, which I know you are, I still think you should like do your hair like
her.
Yeah,
yep,
exactly.
I agree. And then I have a special connection because my mom looked a lot like her when my mom was younger. So like in this film, seeing Jamie Lee Curtis, that I feel like I'm looking at my mom. Oh, it's really sweet.
It's sweet.
I'll have to show you some pics. It's like crazy.
I want to see the pics really bad.
Yeah, my mom was like super tall and lengthy. Is it lanky or lengthy? It's lanky, huh?
I think it's lanky.
My mom was really tall and lanky. She's definitely lost some inches now.
I mean, I think we all have, you know, looking at our phones, sitting at our
gravity,
desk.
You know, all that. But she literally like reminds me so much of Jamie Lee Curtis and vice versa. It's like so cool.
But long story short about Jamie, we fucking love you, Queen.
Yep, we love you. Our original Scream. Man, that's hard to say.
It is hard to say.
Scream Queen. And like, I don't know, if you like ever want to listen to the pod, we'll send you some stickers.
Yeah. Or like,
and dedicate our lives to you and
do whatever
a sacrifice, whatever you need.
We'll do whatever.
We just watched The Witch. We know what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kidding. JK. No one call, I don't know, the authorities.
I won't spoil this, but I'll do some of what The Witch stuff does.
Yeah.
Not all of it,
but
though.
go listen to
that pod, yeah.
And then moving on to some of our other cast members, we have Tony Moran, who plays Michael, or Mike Myers. We have Donald Pleasance, who plays Dr. Loomis. We have Nancy Keys, who plays Annie. PJ Souls, who plays Linda.
She was in Carrie. And she was in the original Carrie, and I hope you guys have all seen that too, because iconic.
And we'll review that, so don't worry.
So I always loved her in Carrie, even though she's kind of a bitch.
Yeah.
And now in this one, she's just pretty slutty. But I always loved her, and I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, she's great. And then we have Charles Cyphers, who plays Sheriff Brackett. We have Kyle Richards, who plays Lindsay. And fun fact about this is Kyle Richards has moved on to be a Real Housewife of Beverly Hills, right?
I don't watch, but I'm pretty sure that's the one.
Yeah, I don't actually watch it either, but I'm pretty sure that's the one. And Kyle Richards is also related to the Hilton family.
Yeah.
And I forget exactly how. I think she's like Kathy Hilton's cousin or something like that.
I don't care enough to know.
Yeah, there's a lot of like ties to different people. And then we also have Brian Andrews, who plays Little Tommy. So that's kind of like our main top billed cast.
However, okay, I want to bring this up.
Okay.
And we kind of talked about this earlier before we were recording. Tony Moran.
Oh, yes.
Is Michael Myers. And Nick Castle is the Shape. So just a little backup. Tony Moran is Michael Myers, and they actually came up with the name Michael Myers because one of the European distributors that John Carpenter knew was named Michael Myers, and he was just like, hell yeah, you hooked me up earlier, and now I'm just gonna name you after a horrible slasher killer. So I mean, I'd be honored.
Yeah,
same. And then Nick Castle is the Shape, and the Shape is also Michael Myers, and he did a lot of the like just standing.
Yep.
Like standing and like looking.
Being ominous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people played Michael Myers in this film or the Shape or whatever, but there's more than one.
Yeah. There's definitely multiple entities, if you will.
So fun facts, just to start it off, I'll dive right in. So this was written by John Carpenter, directed and composed, and probably a million other things. This movie was based on an actual college experience where John Carpenter visited a psych ward and he saw a child staring at him and he said he was looking at him with evil in his eyes. And that's how he like came up with this Michael Myers character and developed this idea. Another kind of cool thing that the original title was very different from Halloween. Perhaps I'll omit the title, or perhaps I won't. No, I'm going to go into it.
I'll just do it.
Okay. So
we gave a spoiler alert.
Yeah, so if you haven't written it down, then it's on you, man. Like,
yeah, you're supposed to write your answers down after trivia and put it away. So
and
don't
be
cheat.
honest with
honest.
Be honest with us when we recap it and you get your answers. Anyway, so the original title of this was actually going to be called The Babysitter Murders. And if you watch the film, it makes sense because babysitters are being targeted and murdered. But I think like it's a good call that they changed it to Halloween because it offered them a way bigger chance to franchise and also like re-release during spooky season and not just tying it to Halloween. And another interesting thing is they originally wanted to have each Halloween movie have a different antagonist or like bad guy. Or like a bad guy that does something bad on Halloween. And it kind of reminded me when I read that, I was like, oh, so you mean like Trick or Treat? And go listen to that podcast that came out last Thursday.
Yes.
Because that is an anthology, but it's about bad things happening on Halloween. But that's how they wanted it to go, this franchise. They ended up using Michael in the second film, and they tried something different in the third, allegedly. I haven't seen it. And then they were like, nah, this is not working. So they went back to Michael, and for the rest of the franchise, he's the antagonist. Also, I don't know how many of these you've seen, Emma, but I've only seen the original Halloween a handful of times. And I've seen Halloween H2O probably more because Josh Hartnett.
I feel like I've seen almost every single one in some capacity, whether it was like when it came out or a few years later. But the only ones that are memorable to me are H2O,
Josh,
this one.
Yeah.
And then I actually watched, there was one that came out last year.
Yeah.
And then there was one that came out like the year before that.
Jamie keeps making them. And I'm sorry, Jamie. We do love you. And I will watch them if you listen to us. But for now, I'm going to save my brain space.
Well, and the one that came out like 2 times ago, I was on like a going to the movies by myself kick. And
Cute.
I went and watched it by myself.
Love
And
that.
I actually I enjoyed the experience, not the film necessarily, but I enjoyed the experience.
I was talking with the producer and Emma about this earlier. Rob Zombie did his own take on the Halloween series. I don't know, in like the 2000s. And it got a lot of flack, but I actually really liked them. I also love Rob Zombie.
I was going to say the same. I can't knock it because I love him.
Exactly.
And I'm sorry, but it's not like we can't knock him because this wasn't a completely original film from his mind. Like he was trying to make something out of something that already existed. So
and was
it's
in
hard
his heart.
to do that.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that. And so I give him a little bit of credit for taking something, making it his style and running with it. So
I really can't actually recall if I saw the second one, but I enjoyed the first one.
Yeah.
I also like Scout Taylor Thompson. So if you know who she is, then you know.
Yeah.
Another cool fun fact, I didn't say interesting, but now I just did, is they were trying to come up with Michael's outfit or costume or however you want to refer to it. And they originally came up with like a freaky clown mask. And we see him in a clown costume as a child at the top of the film. So they had him in a creepy clown mask and they were like, no, this is too fucking scary. So they found
and like not original. Like, come on, you know. I mean, maybe at that time, but like there's been so many
Was this before
things.
it or after it?
This was before. It came out in like the very early 90s.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
But I just feel like, I don't know. We were just done with clowns.
Were we?
No.
Okay.
I'm maybe backtracking a little bit now.
But anyways, they found a James T. Kirk mask on Hollywood Boulevard.
It's Captain Kirk. If you guys know, you know.
I don't know. That's played by William Shatner?
Shatner, yep.
They found it on Hollywood Boulevard for $1.98 in Hollywood. And they like messed around with it a little bit and like customized it and like.
And they were like, okay, this looks soulless and creepy.
Yeah. And it like.
This is perfect.
And now we see that as the iconic Michael Myers mask. Yep. And if you're like on the horror side of TikTok, you see that pop up a lot.
Oh my gosh, everywhere.
All like the little parodies of like him just standing in the yard and just like, and all the like little children that like love Michael Myers, get on Michael Myers like fun TikTok, because that's what my algorithm sets me to. And I'm like, oh,
like, and it's a good time.
It's a wholesome thing.
And speaking of budget, they kept everything so low in this film. So this entire film cost only $300K. That was the entire budget. And even Jamie Lee Curtis in this film, as her first feature film, she was paid only $8,000 for her efforts, which at that time, like right now that we're like, that seems like no money at all for this. I mean, it probably wasn't like a large sum of money, but it was definitely like not a super great A-list actress amount back then.
For a Nepo baby to be like, okay.
True.
Be like a lead role, and she's like, I'll take that.
That's true. Well, and I was going to say too, the funny thing is that I think all of the cast ended up using their own wardrobe. So whether it was something they purchased or something they already owned, I actually have it in here that Jamie Lee Curtis, she went to JCPenney to get Laurie's wardrobe, and she spent less than $100 for everything that she wore within the film. And she actually shot the film while she was on a hiatus from that sitcom that you mentioned, Allie, Operation Petticoat in 1977.
Operation Dumbo Drop.
So she probably, didn't have a lot of budget at all to spend on clothes, and then was told by John Carpenter, you guys are just going to need to wear what you already own. So at least it's a period piece that took place during the actual period.
Oh, God.
A 70s period piece.
Are we calling the 70s films period pieces now?
I am.
Oh, shit. Sorry, Mom and Dad.
Sassy on this,
yeah, you are.
On this film.
Also, speaking of budget, they used a very good chunk of that $300,000 on this fancy new camera.
Oh, yes.
Called a Panavision, and a rig for it called a Panaglide, that like you see those seamless shots going from shot to shot, and it's like all one sequence. So they wanted to
continuous shot.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
That was the word. I said it earlier, damn
I know
it.
you did.
So the continuous shots, and they wanted to spend that money to make a cheap-ish, I mean, 300, like give me 300,000.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about that being chump change, but for a film.
For a film, especially films in those days, like they were still more expensive than this, but they wanted to make it a cheap-ish film look more elevated, so that's why they invested in that, and it pulled it off. And we see a lot of those continuous shots, and those are kind of iconic in this film.
Definitely.
And it's kind of funny, I was watching some kind of documentary about Halloween, and for the continuous shots, they had to get really creative with other things because of budget. Like, so they were like all running around with like flashlights and dimmers and knives and like they had to really play around with the crew to get this shit to all be aligned and make it work, because they spent all this money on a camera.
Well, they were like if you watch this film, a lot of it is very dark, and that is not necessarily purposeful. They just didn't have the money for lighting.
And
so
again,
that just had to happen.
That is a fact, but I also talk a lot of shit about how much the light is not on in this movie. So don't be mad when I bring that up a lot.
Don't be mad. Another thing that I think was super cool, because this is sort of an ode to one of our other films that we recently reviewed, is Robert Englund from A Nightmare on Elm Street, our Freddy Krueger. He was asked by John Carpenter to throw bags of dead leaves on set for one day. So he ended up talking about this in like an interview, like a long time later, that John Carpenter had him throw these dead leaves around to try to create that scene and that setting of like a fall landscape. And I just think it's so funny that he just did it for one day and then like, okay, my job here is done.
Because remember, the dead leaves are like a prop because we're in spring in Pasadena.
Yeah.
And they actually they collected and reused all of those leaves like basically every day.
Wait, that's amazing.
Yeah. Resourceful.
Very resourceful. They could have mine in my backyard. I've been trying to get rid of those suckers for weeks.
Let's hire Robert Englund.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Another thing that I thought was kind of fun is that John Carpenter actually showed this movie to an executive before it was finished. And he showed it without the music being done. And I know we've mentioned the music a little bit about the iconic score and how John Carpenter actually created the score within 4 days, which is insane. And it's this super famous piece of music that is played everywhere all around Halloween time. And he showed it to an executive without the music, and they did not find it scary at all. I guess they still like greenlit the film and were like, okay, go ahead and finish the project. But then after the film was released, the executive watched it again and totally changed her mind. And it was just an indication of how John Carpenter, just the score, everything about it just totally adds to the film's like overall atmosphere. And especially when you watched it in theaters, like at that time, audience members would regularly block their ears because the music was just so intense and like the notes and stuff were so high that it just created this like really great cinematic experience for them.
I keep thinking it's just like a different kind of time and different kind of film experience, because the music to me I like to listen to.
Oh, I mean, same.
And this is like, I can put this on in the background and be like, cute. Anyways.
Well, without further ado, shall we dive into the film?
Let's dive the fuck in.
All right. Okay, so in the very beginning of the film, we get right into the famous song. So the famous score that John Carpenter did, and we see kind of like an opening sequence that it is supposed to be Halloween night in 1963 in Haddonfield, Illinois. And we see kind of a point of view shot at night of someone like walking up to a house. And through this person, this point of view is looking through the window at a gal named Judy and her boyfriend. And they are kind of talking inside and sort of making out and being silly with each other. And she kind of says to her boyfriend, oh, Michael's around someplace. So we kind of get that indication right there that Michael is likely the one whose point of view that we are currently partaking in. Then all of a sudden the point of view is now in the house.
And we see then Loverboy coming downstairs and he's like putting a shirt on and we're like, all right, he came over for like some freaky shit. And then he bounces. But I looked at a timestamp. I like looked this up from when they said, let's go upstairs to when he came downstairs. It was 1 minute and 6 seconds. And I'm like, that's a quick quickie.
But also not surprised.
Teenagers.
Yep, not surprised.
Also, a kind of cool call out is this is one of our first instances of the Panaglide. I don't actually remember what it's called. Panavision, Panaglide, camera, and shot. Like, it's all in one take. And we see then Michael going up the stairs. And so he's going to his sister's room. He puts on a mask. And because the POV that it's in, it's like voyeuristic or like you're in a video game kind of. First person. Mm-hmm. And he fucking yeets his sister.
She's like, Michael, what are you doing? And then he literally just like stops her. And then we see Michael go outside, and his parents have now just arrived from their Halloween dance party.
Hocus Pocus.
From Hocus Pocus. And they take his mask off, and he's just standing there in a little clown costume, and he's holding this bloody knife. And it's such an interesting scene because it's not like frozen or anything, but you get the feeling of everything just being frozen because the two parents are just outside of the house looking at Michael. Michael's just standing there with the knife and no one's doing anything. And then the camera shot pans out. It zooms out of like their house and their street.
A little less artistically, I was like, why the fuck are they so calm?
Totally. Well, that was my thing is I was like, what is going on here? It was just a very weird, very weird reaction.
There's a lot of weird reactions in this film.
That is true. So then our next scene, we have now changed location and changed year. So now we are in Smiths Grove, Illinois, and the night is October 30th, 1978. And it is a very stormy night, and we see our first introduction of Dr. Loomis, and he is in a vehicle with a nurse, and they are driving, and they're kind of having a conversation. We don't know exactly what they're talking about. They're kind of talking about a patient and meeting a patient at a certain hospital and just kind of what the plan is for this patient. And the nurse is kind of questioning Dr. Loomis a little bit, like, why are we going to meet this guy at this specific hospital? It's just kind of random, right? They pull up to the hospital, and as they're actually pulling into like the hospital area, they notice that outside in the dark and in the rain, patients are just wandering outside fully in the rain. And like, honestly, the shot kind of looks like just cattle like on grass. It's very creepy.
That was probably the scariest scene to me.
I agree.
Like, what the fuck?
They're all in like hospital gowns and they look very scary.
And I was like, how the fuck are they all outside? And then I kind of realized it's like Michael probably escaped.
Yeah. You already are starting to gather clues, like in context clues, and you haven't even seen Michael or like the real like Michael Myers as an adult or anything. And they pull up to a gate of the hospital because they're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. There should not be patients out just like roaming around in the freaking grass. And a patient actually jumps onto the vehicle, and the nurse is rolling her window down to try to see what's happening. And he basically brings his hand into the vehicle and is like trying to choke her out.
But if you look closely, you can actually see that the hand that is supposed to be Michael's has a wrench taped to it to break the glass of the window.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this was supposed to be like his hand was just breaking the glass.
Yeah,
but this was a fun fact.
Yeah.
And they like, didn't they paint the wrench to be
it's like
skin
flesh colored?
Because
Yeah.
they were like trying to.
Yep. But you can like fully
it's
see
still
it.
in there. Yeah, it's fine. Some people might just think it's a wrench he might have used to escape.
I love a low budge.
We love low budge.
Yeah.
That's a good call out.
And Dr. Loomis is like, what the fuck? And fucking...
The patient steals the car.
The patient steals the car, and he's been in there since he was 6. How the fuck does he know how to drive?
No idea.
I barely know how to drive, and I'm I'm not telling you guys.
Okay, moving on. So then patient steals a vehicle, and that's all she wrote. Then we now are back in Haddonfield, and it is 1978 Halloween night. And we get our introduction to our gal Laurie, Miss Jamie Lee Curtis, and she is walking to school. And before she like kind of makes it off of her lawn and onto the sidewalk, her dad reminds her to drop off a key at a house that he is going to be selling. And he says, drop it off at the Myers house, which is kind of interesting. And I don't know, when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, are we going to see like the Myers family, like how they're living now after their son murdered their daughter? But Laurie takes the key and she starts walking to school, and she runs into Tommy, which is the boy that she babysits. And he kind of asks her why she's walking this way. And she's like, oh, I need to drop off this key, blah, blah, blah. And they get to the Myers house, and it is this abandoned, really kind of shitty looking house on this street of pretty nice little suburbia homes.
Yeah, which like we said at the beginning, kind of, it actually was a fucking shitty house in this nice suburbia.
Yeah.
In real life.
So it's like real. And then we get that voyeuristic point of view shot of Michael inside of the house, and he's kind of watching through like the screen, but in the darkness, of Laurie dropping off the key and then walking away with Tommy. So then we change scenes again, and now we have Dr. Loomis back at that hospital, actually, but now it's daytime, and he's kind of arguing with someone higher up that we can gather from the hospital staff, and he's basically from this point through the entire movie, he's just trying to flag to people, hey, like, this guy is super dangerous. There is some stuff happening, and we need to find this man because he is like extremely dangerous. And no one's really like taking it super seriously. So Dr. Loomis is trying to tell this hospital executive where Michael is probably going. So then Laurie is in her classroom now, and she's kind of zoning out a little bit in the back, and she looks out of the window, and we actually see Michael outside of her classroom. And just like Allie had mentioned before, he's in this kind of like weird mechanic looking outfit, and he's like standing next to the car that he took. And he's just like right across the street. And then she pans away for a second and answers a question that her teacher asks her. And then when she looks back, he's totally gone.
And like, I know I keep saying these kinds of phrases, but what in the Grand Theft Auto is this? Like, how is nobody freaking the fuck out?
Right?
And I know it's Halloween, but it's the 70s, and there's a clearly fully grown man that's supposed to be 21, but looks like could be like,
who knows,
much older, like a beast, like Bane from Batman.
Oh my God, yes.
And he's dressed up at like 8 a.m.
Yeah. He's just outside the classroom, just chilling. And then we see another school shot at a different school of little Tommy, and he's getting bullied at school. And they're kind of telling him like, we're going to get you and yada, yada, yada. And so it's like freaking him out a little bit. And one of the bullies, as they're leaving Tommy and they're trying to like exit the school grounds, they actually run right into Michael Myers outside of the school fence. And it's a very close-up shot. Like we don't get to see like the entire interaction, but it's almost like a shot of like Michael's torso, the shape. And it's Michael's torso with like the bully kind of running into him.
Also, when little Tommy's getting bullied, they're like saying, yeah, like the boogeyman's gonna get you, like boogeyman's coming, blah, blah. He's also holding a massive ass pumpkin that he didn't have when he was coming to school. And I'm like, where'd you get that massive ass pumpkin?
Maybe he got it at school. Yeah, like why would they give?
I mean, that would be great.
That's a good question.
And that's that.
Maybe they gave them to students to carve later on.
You're a pumpkin, bitch.
You look like a pumpkin, bitch.
In that movie.
I'm pretty sure we quoted it last time too. But
damn,
I love that.
That sucks. Also, so we talked about how we have limited pumpkin resource.
Yes.
The shot where he's getting bullied by the kids and he gets pushed down and the pumpkin breaks, that was one take wonder. They only had one shot. Do not
pass go. Do not collect $200.
No, I was going to quote like Eminem, but I'm not even going to try.
You only got one shot. Yeah. Because opportunity comes one in a lifetime.
Pumpkin. I don't know, man. But they got it in one shot. So
lose yourself.
Thank you.
Lose yourself in the music. In also, the pumpkins, you want it.
How was he at Laurie's high school and at Tommy's?
Yeah, he's in too many places at once.
He's everywhere, everything, all at once.
Oh.
Yeah. Parallels.
Oh my God.
Like literally. He knows where everybody is, everywhere, all at once. And he's also there. He knows and he is there. Chills.
My brain is malfunctioning.
Same. Okay. Moving on.
Okay. So then we're back to Dr. Loomis, and he is clearly on his way to Haddonfield, and he stops about 68 miles or so outside of Haddonfield because we see like a sign that says like how many miles to the town, and he stops at like a train track kind of payphone station place, and he makes a call to the Haddonfield police to try to kind of warn them about like what's happening. And as this is happening, he also kind of notices that there is a truck that has been pulled off to the side and looks like it might have like run off the road or had run into some sort of trouble. So he investigates after he tries to call and warn the police, and he finds, Allie, I think you had pointed out earlier when we talked about it, he finds like a hospital gown. And then we also find a rabbit in red matchbook, which we actually saw on the dashboard of the vehicle when the nurse and Dr. Loomis were first driving together in the rain to the mental hospital the night before Halloween.
That's how our nurse lit up her cigs.
Yeah, she was smoking a cig as they were driving to the hospital. And so we're putting two and two together now. What I think is kind of interesting is that he doesn't call the police, at least that we see, to tell them about how he just found this vehicle and he found the matchbook and the hospital gown, and I don't know. It just seems to me it's like it could be something you could at least let the police know.
The fact that nobody calls the police in this fucking movie is crazy. And I'll get into the stupidity like more down the line. But and the fact that he doesn't see the dead body by the truck.
Oh yeah. There's the mechanic's body is in a bush.
Are we assuming that's where he gets his mechanic look from?
Yes, we are.
Lewk.
Luke.
Yes.
The Luke. I'm going to say yes. Then we see Laurie, and she is walking out of school, and she runs into her first friend that we get introduced to, which is Linda. And as Allie had mentioned earlier, Linda was actually in Carrie, and she kind of plays like a very similar character and even similar looking character in this. So
100%.
I thought that was kind of cool.
She also says totally way too much, but like I'm here for it because I say fucking like way too much.
But it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. They run into their other friend as well, Annie.
Who's a bitch, kind of.
Who's kind of a bitch. And as they're all kind of walking home together, they actually see the stolen vehicle, Dr. Loomis's vehicle, drive by them very creepily and then kind of speed off. And one of them, I think it was Annie, yells at them like to not speed. And then the car just halts and stops. And they're kind of freaked out for like a hot second, like, oh shoot, is someone going to come out of this car and like talk to us right now? Or like, what's going to happen? But then the car just keeps going. So the girls kind of shrug it off. And then they're all talking about how they're going to be babysitting for the night. And they're actually all kind of babysitting in houses like very close to each other, right?
So 2 are babysitting.
Oh, it's Annie and Laurie.
Linda is getting ready to fuck.
Yeah, her boyf.
And I said in my notes, like, if you're babysitting on Halloween, don't you take them trick-or-treating, not just like staying in a dark house?
I thought that as well.
Different time? I don't know. Word.
Like maybe they did stuff with their school before. I mean, I know I did stuff like with my school when I was younger.
Like a trunk or treat?
Yeah, like maybe they just did something else and their parents were like, oh, we'd rather you just stay in with them that night.
Then like let the parents party. Like I get it.
At the Hooks
Actually, I
party.
don't. I'm not. Something else about this scene that I noticed is they're all like carrying stuff.
Yep.
And I asked my parents, I watched this with my parents, which is kind of weird. Actually, it wasn't. It was lovely. Thank you, Mom and Dad.
I was going to say, I feel like you watch a lot of these with them.
Yeah,
which is
100%.
Great.
And I was like, okay, so Laurie's holding like 5 books.
They make a comment too about her like holding books. They're like, how do you have all the room for that? Or like,
well, and then Linda was like, books. I don't remember any of my books, anything. So like, I'm pretty much Annie and Linda in like one person because I'm a last girl. Remember? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, you're first girl.
I'm a first girl.
Yep.
And they're both.
And I'm kind of like Laurie, like I'm like carrying 85 books.
And I'm just like, I don't have a book. What's a book?
What's a book? What's reading? What's reading?
But so I asked my parents, I was like, did you guys like have backpacks?
1 million books?
No, I was like, did you have remember
like how did you carry book bags? My mom said she had book bags.
Well, and I talked about backpacks specifically, and they're both like, no, we didn't use those in school. And I was like, what the fuck? I was so into my Lisa
Did
Frank.
you carry a wagon like Matilda?
Aw.
I would.
Send me on my way.
Send me on my way.
Rusted Root. Love that.
Way. So at this point, Linda kind of peels off and she goes home. And then we have Annie and Laurie that are still kind of walking together home. And they actually see, or Laurie thinks that she sees Mike Myers standing outside of a bush. And it's actually a very iconic scene that Allie mentioned. Like it's all over TikTok. People try to recreate it all the time. It's like, it's Mike Myers basically standing next to a massive hedge bush. And, or is that what you call it? Hedge?
A hedge.
Just a hedge. And she's like, oh my God, there's someone right there, blah, blah, blah. And so Annie's like, well, you know what? Let me go check it out. And so she's like, oh, Annie, it's so-and-so. And she like pretends like it's, I don't know, like a boy or something like that. And she's like, he wants to talk to you. And Laurie's like, no, like that's not right, whatever. And then so she tries to go up to where Annie's at. And they both discover that like no one was actually behind the bush, even though Laurie did see it.
Also, like, how does nobody ever see Michael
I know,
Myers?
or catch him.
Yeah.
He's slow.
That's the thing is like, he's slow. He's the fastest slow person.
He is. He's the fastest slow person, 100%. And so then Annie makes it to her home. Laurie is now by herself walking home the rest of the distance. And she actually runs right into Sheriff Brackett, who we actually find out a little bit later is Annie's father.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of makes a comment of like, well, if you're going to be scared, I guess it's best to be scared now on Halloween. Yeah, or something like that. And then she goes into her house. And she goes into her room and she's kind of like trying to settle down a little bit.
She's chilling.
One note that I actually have here is that in her bedroom, she has a poster of a painting by James Ensor. And Ensor was actually a Belgian expressionist painter who used to portray human figures wearing really grotesque masks.
Where'd you fucking hear about that?
The internet.
That's crazy.
And so I thought that was a really cool tie. I'm also familiar with the artist, so I looked it up immediately when I saw it.
You're familiar with the artist?
I took AP art history.
So did I, bro.
Well then,
I don't retain information though.
Yeah. I just knew like I had recognized it from somewhere, and I was like, this has to be significant in some way. So then she looks outside, and Laurie actually sees Mike Myers standing in her yard with all of her hanging sheets. So just like a lot of people do now, as they hang their laundry, it's kind of one of those scenes, and she's really freaked out and is like, okay, what the hell? And the phone rings. And when she picks up the phone, no one is there. So now she's seeing Mike Myers now twice in like basically probably time frame of less than an hour. Then the phone rings and no one's there. But then all of a sudden the phone rings again and it's Annie on the line. And she's being super nonchalant and is just like, hey girl, like I'll pick you up at 6:30 for us to go to our babysitting gig.
Here's my question to you. Like if you thought you saw, I think maybe now it's 3 times. If you thought somebody was stalking you like 3 times, like first at school, second on the way home, third in your backyard.
Yeah, within a matter of hours, I'd be super freaked out. Totally agree. And I don't know what I would do, but I wouldn't do what she's doing, which is doing nothing.
I would fully call my parents and be like, I need help, even though I'm 30-something.
Yeah. Oh, I would still do that as well. Totally.
Great. Perfect.
So then we fast forward a little bit and it's getting a little bit towards like dusk time. And Laurie is leaving her house to go to her babysitting job, and she carries a big pumpkin out with her. We've talked about the significance of the pumpkins being featured. And she walks to the corner of her street to get picked up. And we actually see her kind of checking out some kids that are trick-or-treating. And then Annie picks her up in this really, really cool red vehicle.
I mean, I would fucking love that car.
Yeah, that car was sick, honestly.
And what is she listening to?
Blue Oyster Cult, baby.
And
BOC.
We said we'd bring up Scream a little bit, but remember we brought up, if you listen to that episode, we brought up Don't Fear the Reaper, a different rendition.
The Reaper.
I do. I fear the Reaper.
I try not to because BOC says not to. So.
Oh, yes.
You know.
And we trust BOC.
We trust him.
More cowboy.
Yeah. More cowbell.
Cowboy.
My dog. More cowboy. I was like, yes, absolutely.
So that's a little a throwback or forward, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Like they play that in this and that in Scream.
And then Annie picks her up and gives her a little blunt. And it's so funny because we don't actually see them smoking it, but it's obviously inferred. As this is happening, then we go to a scene with Dr. Loomis where he is at a graveyard with a grave attendant and he is looking for a specific grave. And he's looking for Judith Meyer's grave. And this is Mike Myers' sister that he murdered at the very beginning of the film. And as they're looking for her grave, they notice that they find a gravestone missing from one of the graves. And the grave attendant counts the graves. He's like, 16, 17, 18. Oh, shoot. And he realizes that it is Judith's gravestone that is actually missing.
And like knowing what we know, that's a lot of work to like.
A lot of work. Gravestones are heavy as hell. Also, I thought it was kind of interesting that like he took her gravestone, but like didn't dig up her body or anything. Like, I don't know. Not that he needs to necessarily, but I just thought it's like if you're going to disturb someone's grave.
I bet you anything there's like some symbolism facts on the web.
Probably.
That explain it or like try to explain it. But we're
most likely.
In my mind, I'm just like, that's a lot of effort.
It's a lot of effort.
And strength.
Strength, effort.
What kind of gym do they have at that psych ward?
Dude.
And why is he allowed in it?
I know. So then we go back to Annie and Laurie, and they're turning a corner in their little town, and they actually see Annie's dad, Sheriff Brackett, and he's at a hardware store. And there's like some sheriffs outside this hardware store, and they're like, oh, shoot, like hide the blunt. My dad can't know, blah, blah, blah. And they pull up, and Annie's like, Dad, like, what's going on? And basically they say that someone broke into the hardware store and they stole a Halloween mask, rope, and a couple of knives. But they're so nonchalant about it, and this must be a very trusting town because literally he just says it so nonchalantly, like, oh, just a mask and some rope and just a couple of knives.
Oh, like, it's Halloween.
Not a big deal.
Yeah.
And so Annie and Laurie are like, okay, well, like, bye, Dad. Like, we're going to go babysit. And then Dr. Loomis actually now has made it to Haddonfield and comes up to Sheriff Brackett at the hardware store and says, like, dude, I need to talk to you. And like, kind of like, we need to get on this like ASAP. Then we dive into Laurie, and she is being now dropped off for babysitting. And we actually see Michael kind of like stalking the street that she's on, and he's in the car that he stole. And he's watching everyone at this point. And this is where we get a lot of that voyeuristic kind of point of view shot. He's really, really watching the girls that are babysitting. So he is watching Annie very intently go to the house that she's babysitting at. And we're going to get a lot more of just seeing him really watching Annie a lot, and then kind of what ends up happening to Laurie. So then Dr. Loomis and Sheriff Brackett actually go to the old Myers house. And because Dr. Loomis is so adamant about some shit going down and like this guy's really dangerous and like let's see if he has done anything, because he's obviously gone now back to the town that he lived in. He went to his sister's gravesite. Like he's probably gone back to his old house, and they break in and they find a dead animal.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Did they say it was a cat?
No, they said it was a dog.
Oh, it was a dog. And then I think the sheriff or Dr. Loomis says, well, like it might be a skunk or something. And Dr. Loomis literally goes, he was hungry.
And I'm like, what the fuck were they feeding them at the hospital or whatever?
I guess Michael just has no means to get any kind of food. So he's just like, and he's a psychopath. So he's like, well, let me just get this little animal. And we know that murderers, serial killers, psychopaths, they tend to hurt animals. So that could be a pattern that's being tied in
also,
there.
Also, like top ramen was probably like 5 cents.
Does he have any money though?
He could find I don't know.
I just don't think it's on the top of his priority.
He just wants to kill.
He's like, I just need to be fueled for murder.
I think heating up some top ramen is
a better way to go. I agree.
Faster than.
Does he have a pot? See, now we're having no running water.
An apple on a tree?
There we go.
I don't know, man.
So anyways, we digress. One thing I want to point out here too is that Sheriff Brackett, I think, says something, well, like, what kind of man would do this? And Dr. Loomis says, this isn't a man. So then we kind of get that, like, he's taken everything humanistic and humanizing out of Michael.
This is kind of funny to me, is supposedly Michael's now 21. He was 6 and it was 15 years later that this is happening. And Dr. Loomis has been working with him for that 15-year increment. Mm-hmm. And half of it was like he was trying to get him back to like a state of...
Yeah, I think he says, like, I was working with him for 8 years to try to fix him.
Yeah, right? And then he just, like, gave up because he saw just darkness.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, like, what John Carpenter saw.
The devil's eyes.
Yeah, like, exactly. But also, like, why don't you just, like, give up and move on to your night? I don't know. That's mean.
Yeah, I think this goes back to classic, like, you always see someone in films like these that they've just dedicated too much of their life to something that is never gonna pan out. It's the same thing with like detective movies, I feel like, where it's like they just gotta crack the case, or like they just can't let go of like who this person is. It's kind of like same thing. So then we move on to Laurie, and now she is with little Tommy, who she's babysitting, and they are watching TV together. And I love this part too, actually. Tommy asks Laurie, what's the boogeyman? And this film is synonymous with people calling Mike Myers the boogeyman. And then we get Annie calling Laurie. And as Annie's kind of chit-chatting with Laurie, and they are talking about like the homecoming dance, and I feel like Annie's trying to hook up Laurie with a dude because she's just so in the books all the time. And she's like, oh, I know someone that wants to take you to the dance, blah, blah, blah. And as this is happening...
It's like, we see that like Laurie is the shy, like timid one.
Yeah, it's just not her focus.
And her 2 best friends, Linda and Annie, are just like more adventurous, if you will.
Yeah. You were going to say promiscuous. Yeah. Huh? You're all adventurous. As Annie is like on the phone with Laurie, we're now in Annie's point of view at the house that she's babysitting, and she's babysitting a young girl named Lindsay. And the dog that the family owns, his name is Lester, starts barking and growling. And Annie's like, Lindsay, like, the dog's barking, like, get him out of here, blah, blah, blah. And as this is like all happening, Annie ends up spilling a little bit of butter from popcorn that she was about to make, like, on her clothes.
It's butter?
It's butter. She does. Okay. I didn't know what it was at first during the scene, but then she mentions it later on.
Oh, shit.
She's like, I spilled butter all over my clothes. And I'm like, that's what you spilled?
That changes my notes.
Yeah. Oh.
Because I thought it was something different.
Yeah. I thought she was making like pasta.
I thought it was water.
Yeah. I'm like, bitch, you don't need to wash your clothes.
Totally. But like,
she literally strips down freaking naked in the kitchen.
But about the dog, like, to me, that was like a foreshadowing, because we had mentioned a dog just like literally seconds ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, that can either be the dog warning Annie and little child Lindsay that she's babysitting about danger, or that could also be the dog being like, I'm about to get fucked up.
Totally. Yeah, there's a lot of warning signs there for sure. Annie like strips down and she puts on one of the like dad who she's babysitting for his like one of his button down shirts.
Why is that in the kitchen?
I know. I don't know. Don't ask me.
Okay.
Families put things in weird spots. I don't know.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so she's like just in her skivvies, just in her undies.
Who the fuck would...
I thought you were going to yell at me and say who calls it skivvies.
No.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I was going to yell at Annie.
Yeah.
But I've babysat many times.
Same.
I would never... I thought it was water, but even if it was butter, popcorn...
I would just have the stains on my clothes.
would deal with it.
Or if I was going to take them off, I would just spot clean and probably put it right back on. You know what I mean?
I would literally just deal with it. Or like, I don't...
Spot clean, use a hairdryer to dry the spot in the bathroom.
Anything to not be naked in the kitchen.
The kid that you're babysitting.
Yes.
Totally. Well, and then, so then now we're back at Tommy's house and Tommy actually sees Mike Myers outside of the house and he grabs Laurie to let her know. And he's like kind of freaking out a little bit. And he's like, dude, Laurie, like, the boogeyman is outside. And Laurie's like, what the heck? What the heck? Like, no. Now we're back again at the house that Annie is babysitting at. And unfortunately, we see Annie goes outside.
Listeners, tell me about this. She's going to wash her clothes, which is totally unnecessary.
Yep.
And she's still just in a button down and her underwear, her skivvies.
And her yellow socks.
And her socks.
Yep.
I like those socks.
I know. She does look cozy.
I mean, it's like
it looks like Risky Business-esque.
It's cute. It's a cute look if you're like trying to be like cute for your like
your mans
mm-hmm. or like your womans, mm-hmm. whatever you like.
Yeah.
But she's walking across the path and like a kind of a long-ish walk.
Yeah, the laundry room like area is very far from the actual main house.
And my mom said that's like kind of normal.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. For houses back then.
Did not know.
Sometimes people had like detached garages and people just kept their laundry stuff in like a laundry room next to their garage.
This was like strictly a laundry room?
Yeah, no, we don't see a garage that we know of at least.
Yeah, because it's like a skinny path. So I was like, also I'd be terrified to go out there at night.
Oh, totally. Well, and then we see the dog finds like a separate scene. Annie is not here at this moment, but the dog is outside and runs into Mike Myers on the side of the house and starts growling at him. And then unfortunately, we see a scene that I don't want to talk about.
I'll do it.
Okay.
So we hear poor Lester, like, because we heard that Annie was like, complaining about the barking before, and now the dog is outside, Lester's outside, and we hear him barking again, and Annie's annoying voice is like, Lindsay, the dog! And then we start to hear whimpering, and it's inevitable, like, that Lester has been taken by the boogeyman.
Yep.
And then Annie stops hearing the sounds, and she's like, okay, cool.
I know. She's so easily just like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. She's like, I decaf. Cool.
I was like, you motherfucker. Anyways, we have really bad thoughts about that. Or not bad thoughts, but thoughts about it.
We don't like it.
So then we are now back with Laurie and Tommy. And they are watching The Thing. I think it's called, The Thing from Another World. And this was a film made in 1951 that, fun fact, John Carpenter remade in 1982. And that is just The Thing. And so I think that was kind of fun because it was kind of like a little ode to his inspiration for his other film that he makes a couple years later. As Tommy and Laurie are watching The Thing, they discuss making the jack-o'-lantern because, as we know from the beginning of the film, Tommy brings home the pumpkin and he says to Laurie, like, can we make like this jack-o'-lantern, what have you. And then so
Tommy doesn't bring home the pumpkin. Laurie
brings it over.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Yes. And then we're back with Annie and she's in that like garage laundry room area, what have you. And she's not finding any power. And so she's like trying to flick everything on and trying to get power so that she can like wash her clothes and whatnot. And she actually ends up getting stuck in the room. She tries to get out of like, there's two doors, there's one on each side. And she tries to get out like the front kind of French door, sort of like it has like little windows. And she tries to get out of that. It's locked. And she's like, okay, what the heck? And so she's screaming for Lindsay. And I think it's funny because she's kind of screamed for Lindsay now multiple times with the dog and with the laundry.
So I was like, she's kind of a low-key bad babysitter because we see Laurie just like hanging out with Tommy.
Yeah.
But like Annie's just like on the phone, like spilling shit on her clothes, neglecting Lindsay.
Yeah.
And when she screams for Lindsay, it reminds me of Kristen Cavallari screaming for Stephen.
Oh my God. 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and so she gets stuck in there, and it's funny because we see Lindsay, and every time it pans to Lindsay, Lindsay's just on the couch watching TV mindlessly, like with the TV really loud. It's a vibe.
She's kind of creepy.
She's kind of creepy, but it's a vibe.
It's a vibe.
Do that all the time.
But like, reminds me of creepy kids.
Yeah. Then she tries to climb out of the back like window because she's like, well, this is like kind of my only option. And then she's screaming for Lindsay because she gets caught. And Lindsay finally goes out to find her because Paul called, who is like her lover boy.
Yep.
She's like, okay, like I'll go find her, whatever. And then that's when she like finds Annie in the window.
I think it's funny because
she's like, don't tell anyone. About this.
And then because she's still in her skivvies and shirt, and like,
yeah.
Lindsay's let her out, and she's like, I promise I won't tell anybody. They immediately go back into the house, and Paul's back on the phone, and Lindsay's like, she got stuck in the window.
Yeah.
Like fucking kids, you know?
Totally.
Truth tellers.
Yeah. She's like, yeah. And literally Annie's looking at her like, you little bitch. Like,
yeah.
You said. So now we see her on the phone with Paul after she's gotten stuck in the window. And she's like, well, Paul, why don't you just like come over, blah, blah, blah. And we get the voyeuristic Michael watching her shot as like she's kind of on the phone with Paul. So then Annie is trying to devise the plan of like how she's going to hang out with Paul. And she decides that she's going to do is just bring Lindsay over across the street to where Laurie is babysitting Tommy.
So like why wouldn't they just co-babysit together and like make a Halloween out of it?
I know.
Like why pawn it off?
I think the whole point is like to do stuff with their dudes.
That's okay.
And so Annie's like, well, I'm going to bring Lindsay over across the street to Tommy's house and basically just like drop her there while I go and pick up Paul.
This is how I know she's a first girl, is she's like literally when she goes across the street to drop off or pawn off Lindsay.
Yeah.
She's still in the button up, the man's button up.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like sex driven. And I'm like, girl.
Yeah.
You're first girl.
And then when she goes over to Tommy's house where Laurie is, she finds Laurie and she is carving a pumpkin and then drops off Lindsay and is just like, okay, well, like I'm going to go pick up Paul, what have you. And Laurie's kind of like, okay, like sounds good. And as Annie gets into her car to go and pick up Paul, she goes back across the street to her car that's parked in the garage. Michael Myers is actually in the back seat and he pops out and he strangles her in a very violent and dramatic way.
Totally. And I'm like, wait, first of all, this unlocks a core fear of mine of somebody in my backseat.
Totally. Yeah.
And
very
also,
much a scary thing.
How the fuck did he know, Michael Myers know, she would go to the garage?
Totally.
He is a psychic. He's everything, everywhere, all at once.
All at once.
He's a magician.
He's definitely a magician.
Yep.
So then Tommy actually looks out the window. He's kind of playing a little bit of a game with Lindsay and he's like hiding behind the curtain as they were watching something on TV. And of course he like looks out the window and he actually sees Michael Myers across the street with a body over his shoulder, taking the body inside of the house. And then he screams to Laurie and he's just like, Laurie, oh my God, the boogeyman, there he is. He's just like very distraught. And she's like, nothing's over there, Tommy, because of course when she looks, there's nothing there, right?
Convenient.
Very convenient. And nothing's there. And Tommy's like, nobody believes me. And then I just think it's cute because sweet Lindsay's like,
believe you.
Yeah.
She's like, I believe you, Tommy.
Yeah, it's so cute.
Also, when he tries to express again that he's fucking seen this same quote unquote boogeyman, the shape, Michael Myers, whatever you want to call him, like nobody believes him except for Lindsay.
Yeah.
What she
and
did.
It's like, Laurie, dude, you've seen this dude already 3 times yourself. And now your little guy that you're babysitting is saying that he's seeing him.
And I'm like, okay, Tommy, step up. You're the only one acting like an adult. Yet he neglects to say, like, I saw the boogeyman and he was carrying your best friend, like, across. I feel
she's
like
across the lawn over his shoulder.
I feel like if I were 8, I would not neglect that detail.
No, totally.
But 70s, I don't know. I'm gonna keep saying 70s.
That's just
corduroy.
All we can. That's all we can chop it up to.
Corduroy, bell bottoms, and
polyester. So Linda and her boyfriend,
I call him
Bob. right? Is that his name? Bob?
His name's Bob. I refer to him as Fuckboy.
Yeah. They're all flirty McGurty, and I think the plan was that they would go over to the house and hang out with Annie and Paul, basically, and have like a little time all together.
Meanwhile, there's actually supposed to be a child in that house too.
Correct.
And they roll up in this actually pretty bitchin' car.
Yeah.
But they roll up and they're obviously drinking and driving, and they're talking about how they're like basically like can't wait to fuck in this random family's house while we're babysitting a kid.
There's a lot of sexual tension.
Yeah.
Like, they're like ready
I don't think
to
it's
go.
tension.
I don't think so either. It's just, but they're like just ready to go.
Sexual chemistry.
Yeah.
if you will. Oh, and in my notes I say, why would you just plan on going to have sex at like where your friend is babysitting? Go find a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Go find it. I don't know. Like,
I think there was something though back then when you're a high schooler about being at houses when no one is home.
Let's ask our parents. I'm kidding.
Yeah, gross.
Please don't. I don't want to know. So fuckboy Bob says while they're in the car, he's like, I'm going to rip off your clothes and I'm going to rip off Annie's clothes and then I'm going to rip off Lindsay's clothes. And I'm like, what the fuck? That's a child.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did I miss that?
Apparently.
That's weird.
I know. It's fucked up.
And gross.
Yeah.
Yikes.
And if you aren't keeping up with the names, Annie is the older friend that's in high school and Lindsay's the child that she's babysitting.
Yikes.
Anyways, then they go into the house.
Well, and they find that all the lights are off, which is kind of weird. But they also just like immediately start making out on the couch. They're like, oh, no big deal. Okay. But then Linda calls Laurie across the street and she's like, dude, Annie isn't here. She says, Annie is totally not here.
Totally.
And Laurie's like, I don't know. She went to go pick up Paul. Like, she should be there soon. So then Linda and her boyfriend, Bob, they proceed to have their like sexy time in bed. And then now we see the scene afterwards where they are, it's the classic, like in bed, in the covers, smoking cigarettes. And
like, why do people do that?
yeah. And they talk about like getting a beer and
he was like,
get me a beer.
Yeah. She's adamant about her beer.
Yeah. Very adamant
and
about
he's
beer.
like, this is our classic, I'll be right back.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
This is where it was birthed probably.
Yep. And then while he is in the kitchen getting a beer, while Bob is out in the kitchen, Michael comes out of the closet while he's getting the beer and strangles the boyfriend. And he does the classic, like holding him up by his neck up against like a cupboard so that we see his little feet kind of flailing around. And then all of a sudden when Michael lets go, we don't see Bob's body hit the ground or like his feet go down to the ground a couple inches below. And then we get like kind of a pan out shot of a knife right in the middle of Bob. So we don't see the stabbing and we don't see like blood or anything, but we can infer obviously that that knife is like what's holding Bob's body
Which
up.
I have a note of too because I'm like, how the actual fuck is a kitchen knife as opposed
I know,
to
gonna hold up a body like that.
But you know, movies.
And maybe just for a sec. Maybe then after we pan away, the body falls.
I gotta suspend reality, you know?
Yeah.
Because like that kitchen knife that I saw him holding would not.
Hold
It
up.
wouldn't even go through his entire
I
body.
agree. No.
Ugh.
So then Michael comes into the room where Linda is, and it's kind of actually
It's kind of a
silly.
funny, yeah.
But Michael is wearing a sheet like he's a ghost, and he's wearing Bob's glasses over the sheet. Linda is naked. Basically, she's like, Bob, what are you doing? Like, you're being so silly. But then obviously it's not Bob.
But like she's basically like once he's not like responding or doing anything,
She's kind of getting a little freaked out.
she's just like, I want my fucking beer.
Yeah. And he attacks her and strangles her as well. And she's trying to call Laurie as this is like all happening. And Laurie is just hearing some like moaning and choking kind of on the phone.
So it kind of sounds like
sounds like sexy time a little bit. And Laurie is a little concerned and is just like, what are you guys doing? Like, are you guys messing around? Like, what's happening?
Because I mean, Laurie should have been like concerned much earlier than this. I know we love our Scream Queen, but like, she should have been concerned much earlier than this. And like, the kids are in bed. She's getting this call. It sounds sketchy. Could be sexy time, but like, it's been a weird day.
Totally.
And then we hear nothing from Linda.
We see Laurie and she's like obviously kind of concerned because she just got a weird call from across the street of her friend Linda. And she checks on the kids who are sleeping. And then we go to what Dr. Loomis is doing. And he actually ends up finding his stolen car as he is out on the street, kind of just walking around trying to figure out where Michael might be. And then he kind of like starts to panic. You can see he finds the car. He's obviously probably close to the houses that Laurie and Annie are babysitting at.
I'm also low-key like, how have you not seen this car? Because it's been right around you this entire
Literally
day.
This entire time.
You also said you were to stay at the Michael Myers house to wait for him.
You didn't.
And then you didn't. You went rogue. And where the fuck is Detective? What's his face?
Yeah. So Brackett. And so then Laurie is like, you know what? I am going to go and check out the house where Annie's at. The kids are sleeping. I'm going to make sure the house is locked. And so we have this whole scene of Laurie kind of slowly walking out of the house. She's like checking to make sure that she locked the door. And she walks across the street.
However, if you were babysitting 2 young children, would you leave them alone?
No. And what I would probably do is I probably wouldn't leave them alone. I would probably call the police and ask them to go do like a wellness check.
Good call. Yes. Where's neighborhood patrol? Come
Where
on.
are they?
And if you notice, Jamie Lee is walking across the street to this now seemingly dark house in the dark. No flashlight? Come on.
Yep.
Bring a flashlight. Yep. Women, men, everyone.
Yep.
Bring a flashlight.
Always have a flashlight and like have some sort of weapon.
Mace.
You know, because you're obviously going over there because you're a little concerned.
Mace,
so
keys.
let's do something, right?
Yeah.
So then she's like walking over to the house and she knocks on the door looking for Bob and Linda and Annie. And no answer, no lights, no nothing. So she sneaks in through an open back door and immediately kind of hears some commotion in the house. And she tries to like go and investigate. And she doesn't really see anything, hears noise again, and then decides to go up to a bedroom upstairs. And as she opens the door, she sees Annie's body with the Judith Myers gravestone laying on the bed. So the gravestone is against the headboard and wall.
It's like right
like
above
propped
her.
up like a grave.
Yeah.
And it is kind of above where Annie's body is laying on the bed.
And there's a jack-o'-lantern like lit.
Yeah.
Next to
very creepy.
The bed.
And then, of course, Laurie is freaking the hell out from seeing that. She tries to go out the door and Bob's body hangs, his torso falls down from the ceiling basically and hangs down. And so she's freaked out about that. Then she closes the door and we see frickin' Linda in a closet. So she has now seen 3 of her friends' deaths happen, or like she didn't see the actual act of it, but she's like seeing her friends' dead bodies.
So, wow, I'm so morbid. I said, wow, Michael's been doing a lot of heavy lifting. He must be tired and sweaty and needs some Gatorade.
Some blue Gatorade. That's our favorite.
Because like the headstone, the body.
Yeah. He's been lifting a lot.
And he's been walking a lot. And like,
yeah. What kind of gym routine does he have?
Hydration.
Over at the mental
honestly,
hospital?
He must be hydrated as fuck.
He must be. Gatorade sponsor him. So then, as Laurie's freaking out,
she's standing like by the stair banister.
Yeah, the banister.
And Michael obviously comes up behind her, and is this where he like kind of cuts her?
He makes like a slice through the sleeve of her
blouse,
shirt.
Yeah. And she somehow gets like yeeted over the stairs.
Over the banister.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then she locks herself, I believe it's in the kitchen. And and it's an actual kitchen door. So I know nowadays people have like open concept kitchens, but there was like a kitchen door, and he ends up trying to break through the kitchen door as she is trying to get out the back door, but he has put like a rake up against the back door to keep it like locked from the outside so that she can't get out. And he breaks through the door to try to get to her. She actually manages to escape. And then she's like running outside of the front of the house and she is screaming for help.
And she's like running to the fucking neighbors and nobody's like...
They don't give 2 shits.
No.
You see a person looking at her through the mirror.
They like turn through the window. And they like turn the lights off or
they
something.
Literally are like... I'm like, first of all, if I was a person who someone was about to watch my child, I would like let my neighbors know maybe like, hey, so-and-so. I mean, and this seems like kind of a small town in the 70s. Like you would probably tell your neighbors, hey, the neighborhood kid Laurie is going to come and watch Tommy for the night. I don't know. I just think it's like so weird the neighbor just completely ignored her.
What's that app? Like neighborhood app?
Oh, yeah. She would be.
Like this shit would be all over next door.
Oh, all over next door. So then Laurie heads back to the house that she's babysitting at, and she actually sees Michael kind of walking towards her. And of course,
very
slowly, but walking towards her.
But somehow she loses, she can't find her keys. And she gets into the house, but somehow Michael's beat her.
Don't know how. And she screams for Tommy to let her in. And Tommy actually ends up letting her in just in time. And she makes it into the house, tells Tommy to go and grab Lindsay. And then she notices that a window is open. And she's kind of freaking out because she's like, oh shit. Like, if anything, this dude's going to get in here. And then she has a moment where she's kind of like on the couch on the floor-ish area, I believe.
This is like where she's not well. She's
not well, yeah, because she fell down a banister, by the way.
Well,
or like
also
over
like,
a banister.
holy shit.
And,
on that.
Yeah.
She's like quivering, she's scared.
Yeah.
But she knows that shit's not gonna be good. So she like grabs needlepoint in her bag. So she grabs
knitting needles.
A knitting needle. Shout out to knitting. Fucking love it. And then obviously Michael comes up behind her and tries to stab her, but it actually stabs the couch. And I'm like, okay, your aim's been really good so far, but now you stab a couch?
Yep.
And then she gets him in the neck with a knitting needle. And I'm like,
yeah, she does.
And she however, she thinks that's going to take him out. And I'm like, we know.
And then separately, we're back to Dr. Loomis, and he's walking around outside and he runs into the sheriff. And he's kind of like, hey, I found the car. This is like what's happening. Like, we need to find Michael now. Like, he is like up to no good. This is happening.
To no good. That's silly, Michael.
I know. Then we're back to Laurie. She goes back up to the kids to check on them.
This confuses me because she's like obviously distraught and concerned, and she's like, we have to get out. You guys go in. I'm going to lock you in this room.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go into this different room and lock myself in this closet.
Well, and I think the kids are kind of gathering like what's going on right now. But one thing I will say that Tommy says to her, which I was like, ooh, kind of scary, is he's like, you can't kill the boogeyman. And I was like, ooh.
Listen to little kids, you guys.
Yeah.
Listen
I was like,
to
that
little
is
kids.
Scary. So then Michael comes up the stairs, and like Ali said, as she kind of shoves the kids back into Tommy's room, kind of like to lock it, she hides in a separate room in the closet.
Like, yeah, let's split up. That's the best idea.
Totally. And he breaks into the closet, and they have like a little bit of a tiff, like altercation type thing.
Somehow she manages to make a makeshift weapon out of a wire hanger.
And he drops his knife again. So I kind of forget exactly when he like acquired it again.
But I'll tell you.
Oh, go ahead.
So she stabs him with a wire hanger while she's in the closet.
No, but didn't she have the knife after the knitting needle? Okay. Maybe I missed.
So I had this conversation with my parents. Okay. I don't think she grabbed. Maybe he had multiple. She did not grab it.
You know what? And he did get he did take multiple knives from the hardware store.
But he could have also grabbed it while she was running up the stairs to get the kids.
Because we don't know if she actually did grab it. We did see the shot of it laying on the floor, but we don't know if she grabbed it.
And we see it like later in the film.
Don't
worry.
Okay.
So it's we're on a budget, so we kind of splice scenes together.
Yep.
But anyways, she's in the closet and she makes a makeshift weapon,
yeah.
And she like pokes. I don't know how to, you don't
kind of stabs him, sort of hurts him.
I mean that would hurt, but definitely probably wouldn't kill him.
Yeah.
But that's when he drops his knife in the closet, and he's like breaking apart this closet that's like wooden slats and stuff. And I'm like, how do you do that with a knife in your hand? I could barely. My nails are too long. I can't even do it with one hand. So he's dropped his knife. And Laurie grabs it and she actually stabs him. And then he goes down. And she gets out of the closet. So he looks like he's down. We all fucking know, don't trust that. You got to make sure they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
And this dumb bitch who we love drops the fucking knife next to his body and walks out to go get the kids.
Oh my God.
Don't do that. You guys
She's asking for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys just don't do that.
So then she tells the kid to go and get help. And we actually see Michael kind of in the background getting up from the closet.
I got to mention, she says, go to the Mackenzies. What is that from? She tells Lindsay and Tommy, go to the Mackenzies.
That's from Scream.
Yep.
From the very, very, very beginning with Casey.
Mm-hmm. When the parents are like, where the fuck is Casey? And that's when I was like, why the fuck did they say that? And it's an ode to Scream. Oh, and this is when they say that. Go to the Mackenzies.
Or it's an ode to Halloween from Scream. Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. Whoa. That's a good call out. So the kids leave the house and they are screaming. And I think it's kind of silly because they sort of scream right past Dr. Loomis. Like, wouldn't you see an adult and maybe be like, hey, help us? But I guess she did give direct directions, like, go here. And they actually listened.
What I think is even sillier, once she tells them that and they're still in the house, they're like, okay. And they kind of just like doodle off and they're kind of walking at a regular speed. And then as soon as they leave the house, that's when they're screaming.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Also, Dr. Loomis is like, oh, 2 yelling children. Never, I don't care.
What must be going on
Do-do-do,
here? Yeah. So then now we're back in the house and Michael has caught up to Laurie and he tries to strangle her. And we see his face for a very brief moment.
Mm-hmm. She pulls his mask off.
She is able to pull his mask off. And then Dr. Loomis saves the day and enters the house and shoots him repeatedly.
6 times.
6 times. He falls out the window and then we see a shot of Michael laying on the ground. And I think it's funny, the producer called this out, which I thought was actually really funny. Then when it turns back to Dr. Loomis, shoots again, but it's blank. Like, oh no, like, never mind. Just kidding. No more bullets.
Oh, I didn't capture that.
Not that he even had, like, Michael was already through the window. So it was just kind of funny. And then we see another shot out of the window again. And now Michael's not there anymore.
Laurie is obviously shooketh. She's now got help, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And she's like quivering against a wall. And she's like, was that the boogeyman? There were way more references to the boogeyman in this movie.
Yep.
Than I thought. And I don't remember what.
It makes sense because honestly, in a lot of merch, like I have a Halloween shirt that's from the original Halloween movie and it says something about the boogeyman on it. And like, I didn't really think it was like, think of that much of it. Like I was like, oh yeah, they mentioned the boogeyman, but it's like a thing.
Now I know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she asks, is that the boogeyman? He comments back something about like the boogeyman. And we obviously know that our slowest, fastest person in the world has now fleeted the scene.
He can be fast when he wants to be fast.
I guess. Shit, I wish I could do that.
I know.
And then the movie's fucking over.
So it's over, which is crazy. Yeah, then it kind of pans out where you're in the Myers house area. You're in the, like, just in, like, Haddonfield.
Yeah.
Suburbia.
Literal
and
B-roll scenes.
We hear the theme song and it's going hardcore. And we hear the famous, we didn't really mention it a lot in this film, but you hear Michael breathe a lot.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that. Like,
yeah.
The only thing I'll say about that is like,
it's during those point of view shots where you like are really in his like first person point of view.
But don't you think even if he's sneaking it behind you, you would hear like,
depends on your hearing, I guess.
Oh, then I'd be fucked because my hearing is horrible. That was the film, you guys.
Yeah. Did you think that this film was scary?
Absolutely not.
I will say, and I know I've said this on a couple of other films, but I thought that it was scary when I was younger. And I will say, like, I definitely don't think it was scary as a kid. The music makes a damn difference.
That's what I say about everything is the music
it makes such a
everything.
Difference.
Like I said last time, like what if Hans Zimmer holiday score did something for whatever film?
Totally.
I don't know. What if it was this like the soundtrack from like Tangled?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Totally different movie.
God, that's so true. Yeah.
Jaws is only scary to me because actually, that's not true. Fuck what I just said.
You're like, it's just scary.
Yeah.
Well, and then what was like your favorite scene?
I think my favorite scene, it's probably honestly when he's like dressed up as a ghost, ready to come into the room where Linda's naked.
That's my favorite scene as well. It's
like,
just it's kind of like a dose of comedy.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm like, how does he know that that's like a thing to like put a sheet on and pretend to be a ghost?
Yeah.
And he knew that he's just like, I'm gonna be a funny bitch for like a second before I kill you.
Exactly.
So that was probably like the best. It also kind of reminded me of Beetlejuice, so I kind of like that.
Oh yes, totally. Yeah. There's no feet.
Well, he had feet, but
he had feet.
Yeah,
he had feet and glasses.
Maybe we'll cover that one day.
I think so.
Beetlejuice.
Like
so that's your favorite?
Bonus. Yeah, that was mine too.
Yeah.
My other one that I was going to say, but it's not really a scene. It's just something that happens repeatedly. Is just the fact that Lindsay, the little girl that Annie is babysitting, is just always oblivious when Annie's like calling for her, and she's just like watching TV on full blast, like totally zoned out.
That's why I'm scared of her.
I love that about her.
Okay, that makes me scared of you now.
Thank you.
All right, fuckers, we're going into trivia. So pull out your answers that you wrote down when we did this at the beginning, and we're to go through them, and you can keep score with us because now this is a competition, bitches. Jumping into question number 1, Jamie Lee Curtis's mother, Janet Leigh, played what title character in Hitchcock's famous Psycho? And I know I got this right.
Marion Crane.
Marion Crane, bitch.
My grandma's name was Marion, so
really?
I've always remembered that. My mom's mom.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I know maybe one.
All right, so question number 2. What was the original title for the film's script before it was changed to Halloween?
Well, I already said this during fun facts or whatever, but definitely the babysitter murders.
The babysitter murders. The babysitter murders. Okay, so we got that one. So we're tied so far. Oh, this is scary.
Also, maybe that's what the Babysitters Club was based off of, and they're just like, let's take it a different way.
Happy.
Yeah.
Girl, let's make this like a cool power story.
All right, our third and final question, which we probably won't need a tiebreaker for because I probably got this wrong. Okay, so our third and final question, and we'll see if we need a tiebreaker on this one, is name one of the 2 movies Tommy and Lindsay watched throughout the night, and you get a bonus point if you can name them both. So the answers are The Thing from Another World, but we will also accept The Thing.
Yes.
And Forbidden Planet.
Oh. Okay, so I think I won trivia.
Did you get Forbidden? I got The Thing.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh. So yeah, we do need a tiebreaker.
Oh shit, here we go.
So we're 3 for 3.
So we actually do need a tiebreaker. Shocker. And the question that the producer gave us is, what is the worldwide box office gross of Halloween? And whoever gets the closest number wins the point. And Emma, what you say?
I'm going to say 46 million.
I'm going to say 80 million. Yeah, I'm just going to throw my hat in the ring. Oh, damn. You looked it up.
I did not.
Cheater.
I did not look it up.
I'm a cheater.
But the producer just let me know that I am correct. Or at least the closest. I didn't look it up. I haven't even touched my computer this whole time. You can watch me. Let's check the Furbo footage.
So Emma wins.
I win so far. Well, I think the producer, so the point is I think the producer is going to take a tally of a certain amount of episodes, and then we'll probably have to do something at some point. So we'll keep you guys updated on what that's going to be.
Drink blood.
But he's basically starting from our last episode. He is going to be keeping a tally of what our scores are. So we'll keep you guys posted. We're 1-1 right now.
Fuck yeah.
So Allie won the last round. I won this round. So we're tied. But yeah, that is everything for today's episode. Thank you guys all again for listening. We appreciate you so much. And happy Halloween, everyone. Before we go, we want to remind you to follow us on Instagram at Spooky Chicks and Horror Flicks. We also have a Patreon at Spooky Chicks and Horror Flicks, which we have different levels that you can subscribe to support the podcast. And if you subscribe to our top level, which is $10 per month for support, you actually get to pick a film that you would like us to review. And we just did a Patreon episode for The Witch. And yeah, you can also find us on TikTok, Spooky Chicks and Horror Flicks.
You guys, we really hope you had an amazing October. And don't forget, spooky season lives in our hearts forever if you just believe. So,
oh, Polar Express. That's
yes,
so cute.
I'm glad you got that reference. So, happy Halloween and stay spooky, fuckers.